Every day I'm hustling, 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 hustling.
Welcome to the Tour Track with Adam Connolly and myself, Harden. We bring you destination experience operators from all over the world to chat about their experiences, find out what makes them and their businesses tick.
Listen, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this evening or this morning or this afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Really exciting conversation that's going to be happening this evening. So huge thank you for giving up your time. So my name's Adam Connolly. I am one of the co-founders of Group Tour Professionals. Talk a little bit about that in a minute. First of all, huge thanks to Mitch and TripSchool for facilitating, hosting the Zoom facility, the Zoom conference facility that we are using now. So thank you very much to Mitch for that and doing all the background work. Massive thank yous. So what I'm going to do, we're not going to keep you any more than an hour. I'm going to give a really quick introduction of who we are. Then I'm going to let the guys talk for themselves, because it's far more interesting than me. And then we're going to get started, really. So, so the purpose of our conversation tonight is really it's kind of to kickstart the conversation, actually, because I think this is going to run this theme. We're going to kickstart the conversation about the future of AI, artificial intelligence, robotics, and technology in general, really, in the guiding the tour operator landscape. So we're going to have a look at what's available right now on the market, which was a little bit of a surprise to me, I must admit, when I researched it recently. What the future holds, the immediate future, and kind of 5, 10, 20 years down the line. And we're going to look at the threat and opportunities that poses to tour guides and to tour operators around the globe. So that's just a quick kind of reason why we're here. So I'm going to be moderating this. As I said, I'm one of the co-founders of Group Tour Professionals, and we've very much got a kind of we're in the middle in this discussion, I think, because we have an awful lot of members who are small tour operators who will be looking to utilize some of this technology in the coming years. We also have a lot of members who are kind of owner-operator tour guides who own their own tour business, deliver their own tours, and do that because they absolutely love it. They love making that connection with the customers, and they will have a vested interest in listening to what the future holds for them and how it can potentially impact them. So, quick introductions. I will go to Mitch first because he's very kindly put together the platform for us tonight. So Mitch is from TripSchool. And there's not much that Mitch can't do really in terms of anything in terms of guiding and putting his hand to. So we'll come back to Mitch in a minute. The gentleman in the top left hand of the screen is my co-founder from Group Tour Professionals, Harden, who 6 years ago founded the International Association of Tour Directors and Guides and has since helped thousands of tour directors and tour guides find employment with tour operators all over the world. Then we come to Emma Gonzalez, who is the president of the Guide Association of New York City. So hugely experienced in delivering those face-to-face experiences on the ground in New York, making sure customers and travelers go away absolutely delighted with their experience. And her and her fellow guides will have played a huge part in that. Directly underneath me, right in the middle, we've got Alex Bainbridge, who comes to you from Oxfordshire in England at the moment. Alex is the CEO of Observatory, who are building I had this written down, Alex, and it's so intelligent and complicated that I've now forgotten it. But we'll come to you in a minute. Basically, you are building the future. You're building Sarah. That's it, Sarah. I had a chat with Sarah earlier, actually.
Doesn't say very much.
I'll tell you about that later. And then we've got Ian Manley, who is CEO of Voice Maps. Voice Maps, I'm sure you have a very impressive range of tours on their system, and I was delighted to find one in Whitby, which is the last place I went to the seaside in the UK, which was really interesting. And then last but by absolutely no means least, we've got John Boulding, who is the Chief Marketing Officer for Vox Group. Now, if anyone's ever been on a tour in Europe, you will have absolutely had one of John's devices hanging around your neck for some point throughout your tour. So welcome all of you. Thank you so much for taking part. Really appreciate it. Mitch, can you just give us a very quick introduction to who you are and what you're all about?
Yep, my name is Mitch, and if you haven't seen me around, I run an organization called TripSchool, which trains tour guides, we train tour directors, and then we also work with small businesses or large businesses to get better or to start their own tour business. And so we work with entrepreneurs and we work with guides who are new or already working. Just as a quick heads up, thank you all for joining this. And if you can see this little teaser, I just did want to put in a little pub for next week, which I'm also really excited about. We're going to be hosting discussion with Steve Bourne, who's the CMO of Globus. They've just announced that they're putting trips back on the road coming in October. And Jeff Gadick, who is a longtime publisher of media that many of you might consume related to large group travel. And we're going to be talking about just the fact that when we do return from whatever slumber we're in right now, what customers want and how we operate tours and how we guide and how we lead as tour directors is going to look very different. So we're going to just sort of look down the road and see what those changing demographics and traveler trends is going to mean for a company like the size of Globus, and therefore also just indicative of what the future holds for us. So don't miss that next week. And this session right now, if you're one of those people that goes and just registers for a webinar and then you just come back and watch the recording, you'll find it on the tripschool.com/future. That will be available for you as soon as I have a moment, so don't bug me, but it'll be coming. And again, a huge thanks to group travel professionals and to all of you for coming to, just dive into some robot talk. I'm excited about this.
Thank you, Mitch. Vaughn, tell us quickly about yourself, please, mate.
Hi, everyone. My name is Vaughn Harden. I am with Group Tour Professionals Association. We are an association for destination experience operators or independent tour guides, attractions, activities, experience hosts, all of the above. I also serve as the president of the International Association of Tour Directors and Guides, and also own a tour company called CE Tours. I almost forgot the name of it because it's been so long since we've done anything. So, but yeah, so I've been in the industry for a little over 20 years, about 22 years. And I really enjoy serving all of you independent tour directors, independent tour guides, and small business tour companies who we try to provide as many resources as possible to help people get their careers and their businesses, flourishing. So I appreciate you guys being here, and I'm looking forward to the talk.
Great. And just to add one little maintenance item, anybody that's here attending live, you can use the Q&A function to add questions to the queue, and we'll get to them sort of throughout the discussion together. All right.
Thanks, Mitch. Thanks, Vaughn. Emma, hi.
Hi, everybody. My name is Emma, and I'm president of the Guides Association of New York City. We also just call it GANIC. I just started being president in January. Needless to say, it's been quite a run. We weren't expecting any of this, so GANIC has been very, very busy. I'm also a tour guide at the One World Observatory on top of One World Trade Center. I've been there since we opened in 2015, and prior to that, I have my own little tour company, and I do a lot of small groups, private groups, art and architectural tours in New York City, and over the road to Niagara Falls and Philly and DC with Italian groups. I speak fluent Italian, so I've done a lot of those over-the-road trips with groups of Italians. And I'm happy to be here, so thank you very much.
Brilliant, thanks, Emma. Alex.
Hi, good evening. Well, it's good evening from the UK. So my background in this industry is prior to tour, I founded a business called Tour CMS, which was the first software as a service reservation platform for local tours and activities bookability. We were then actually the first company to connect a reservation system to the OTAs. So fundamentally, the technology that the current tours and activities industry relies on, I was the first to bring to market. I sold that business in 2015 and been trying to work out what's coming next. And it turns out it's robots. So that's what I'm here to talk about today.
Well, that's what you think. Let's see how we get on at the end of the conversation, and maybe our audience will be the judge.
Yeah, but this is definitely where the industry is headed. So this is where I'm headed to. So.
Cool. Thank you, Alex. Ian, hi.
Oh, hi. So I'm Ian, and I'm the founder of VoiceMap, which is a platform for location-aware audio tours. And we help people through the whole process of putting together a tour. We have a collaborative publishing tool that allows them to work with an editor that helps them to map, script, and record a tour and then get it out into a marketplace. And we set it up that way because, as I'm sure we'll discuss later, doing this well is difficult.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ian. And John, hi.
Yeah, thanks. So, yeah, I'm CMO of Vox Group. We're based in Italy as a parent company, but we're actually global. We've got 55 offices around the world and dealing with millions of travelers in some of the sort of core stuff that you get when you do audio guiding. We supply that sort of equipment, and that's been the core of the business. But things have changed. They've changed a lot, actually. And for the last 5 or 6 years, we've been developing intelligent tourism destination software for tourism and events and that sort of thing. We manage some very big institutions, including St. Peter's in Rome as well. But today, we're very big on the smartphone application side, supplying advanced applications for guides, for tour operators, and for consumers as well, for self-guiding sometimes as well. So we're into a lot of this sort of changing world. We'll talk about that later too.
Brilliant. Thank you. Right, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate that. Gives everyone a good flavour of kind of who we are and what we're all about. So the title of this series is The Robots Are Coming, but actually, I wonder if they're already here. And it would be great to, because Alex and John, you've both had products launched fairly recently. Ian, you've got a really impressive range of tools that can be downloaded right now. So, so just quickly, what's on the market right now that encompasses this technology that consumers and tour operators could use straight away? What's the situation as we speak today?
Yeah,
Alex.
Oh.
Ian, go on, Ian.
Well, so I think that at the moment we're in a place where there's a huge amount of fragmentation. There are actually, tens, if not hundreds, of audio tour, self-guided tour apps, and to my mind, the problem is that too many of them are of a very low quality. They deliver a user experience that means that people don't come back to not just that app, but to self-guided tours through a mobile app in general. And I call them sort of zombie apps because very often they've never really found product market fit. And that means that they're sitting out there, organically acquiring users and kind of turning people off this category. And I think that's a real shame because I think that there's a lot of suppressed demand. I think what the reality is here is that self-guided tours are actually going to increase the market size of tours in general. And they're going to do that in a similar way to Uber, increasing the number of people that would take a taxi. When it's easy to do on demand and it's cheap to do, you suddenly have a whole bunch of people looking to do tours that might not have been interested in doing one before. And I think that everybody in this space knows that a guided tour, a group tour, or a private tour is not for everybody. So it's an interesting way to sort of move all of the knowledge that guides have and put it somewhere else where you can attract a different market or open up a new market.
Okay, thanks, Ian. So like a fragmented option at the moment, or range of options. Alex, you were going to jump in?
Yeah, I was just trying to contextualize this change alongside all the other changes that have happened within the sector over the last 20 years. So if you think we've had this is the fourth generation of technology that has hit tours and activities. So the first was web, that gave us e-commerce and res systems. The second was mobile, and that forced us to connect those res systems to OTA so that you could do live bookings at last minute. Then we had social, which included TripAdvisor, Airbnb, and person-to-person tours. So this is the fourth big generational change, and it's kind of AI is the bit that kind of encapsulates this fourth generation. But fundamentally, the real fundamental shift that this is changing is that we shift from having a human delivered product to a digitally delivered product. And that's the big shift that we're really all talking about. And that digital delivery of product can be in 5 ways. So we can have audio tours, like Ian's just talked about. We can have AI tour guides, which is what I'm focused on, which is a slightly different thing. We can have autonomous vehicles, again, slightly different, like self-driving buses, etc. And then we have the games, a good example being like Questo, where you have sort of in-destination game playing. And then you have the sort of the newer ones on the scene, like City Guide, who are doing augmented reality tours. So even within this, Ian was talking about the fragmentation within audio tours, but audio tours is itself only one of 5 parts of what is digital product delivery. So it's a new section, but we've already, it's a new generation of technology, but it's already got 5 distinct flavors that we can talk about.
Okay, and Alex, sorry, just to drill down on the question, what's available right now? And in terms of your product, what could a customer pick up or a tour operator look at right now to develop?
So
this year,
as our minimum sort of viable product, just to really demo what we can do, we launched 40 food tours in 35 cities, which are in 14 countries. So we can now replicate what most local food tour operators can replicate, and we're giving those products away for free. So immediately we come out of the blocks with a 14 country offer with these food tours that are 3-4 hours long. And a food tour is a quite different concept to an audio tour. An audio tour is very highly produced content, and a food tour is much more navigational. It's much more go here, then go here, then go here, and it's a very different kind of a concept. But yeah, 40 food tours, and more coming.
Okay, cool. I might challenge myself to do all of those in one day.
Yes.
I reckon I could. John, you guys have just launched a new product as well, haven't you? It's available to market right now.
A few. So we're coming at it from a slightly different angle, because we're coming at it from a background of B2B and working with tour operators and guides and that sort of side. So much of our approach has been about looking at what the consumer is looking for today and recognizing the changes. And all of this has been accelerated by COVID, and we've put huge amounts of energy into moving some of these pipeline products that we had going in the background, moving them very, very fast forward. But always looking at what the consumer is thinking about today, and their needs and their preferences and so on have really changed. COVID's made that change. It's accelerated that change. People have got the new interest. They're more likely to want to self-impose self-distancing, social distancing. They're going to be more wary of crowds. They've got this huge boost to technical skills in lockdown. So all of those things we all know about, but they're very, very critical to this mix. And what we've done is work on this sort of mix of products that allows legacy operators or people who have established business in tourism to be able to take advantage of technology that delivers this, if you like, these attributes to customers who have these aspirations and have now got habitual stuff going on in the way that they want to do things. So we've got products that are able to help tour guides with smartphone guiding over their smartphones. Instead of getting Vox equipment with hardware and that sort of thing, it's all smartphone guiding. And then we've got the self-guiding type of app with content delivered, geotag content. We'll talk about that later. And then we've got hybrid products now just launched, which are a combination of hop-on, hop-off tours with local guides who are guiding around the city, found on the app, geotagged on the app that you can join, or self-guide whenever you wish. Get off and do that as well. So a lot of stuff going, lots of opportunities out there. Okay,
cool. So it's quite clearly a lot out on the market right now. Ian, you mentioned there's this kind of zombie app phenomenon, which is basically poor quality, which is just turning people off using a self-guided digital guide. Let's call them digital guides for the sake of the fact that there seems to be about 1 million different terms. So you're saying there are these poor quality products out there. Emma, from your experience on talking to customers around New York, have you had anyone that's experienced these tours and have kind of come back to having a human tour guide?
Well, I don't know people who have used per se a digital guide. if we're going to use that term, and then gone back to a regular guide. But I do know of people who've used digital products, who have used digital aids to help them in their experience. So for example, at where I am at the One World Observatory, we have a digital guide. It's an iPad with images of the city with tagged landmarks, and people tap on the landmark and they get a little 1.5-minute recording giving them information about the landmark. It can be useful for orienting people when they get upstairs. I mean, they're so high up to be able to see what they're looking at, and they find it useful. But they always end up coming to the tour ambassadors, we're the on-site guides, with the actual questions. And one of the things about a digital product is nobody can answer your questions. So, I mean, the food tours sound marvelous. You can go from one spot to another, but you don't have anyone saying, well, I'm sorry, we're closing at 4:30, so you have to, change your route. Maybe there's some roadworks and things that are being deviated, or perhaps something is happening in that location, and the on-the-ground person who knows the site, or who knows the city, or who knows the landmarks can give you a background and can give you the information that you cannot ask your digital guide for. And so that's in mind.
Alex
looks like there's a nuclear explosion just gone off at the facility just near his house.
I'm still trying to recover from what you said 5 minutes ago. I've got to see. Yeah. Tour guide, AI guide, tour guides are not the same as digital guides. First of all, we've really got to get that term.
Okay. So for the sake of having
the fundamental difference. I'll tell you what the fundamental difference is between the two. Is an audio tour might be 3 hours long, and it's purchased as an experience for 3 hours. You can do it any time you like during the day, but it is a certain length of time because that's what the production of the audio has expected you to take. Whereas I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at the entire 15 hours that you're awake in a destination. So my addressable market is the 15 hours you're awake, not the 3 hours you're deciding to take a commercial experience versus another experience. So that's the difference between an AI tour guide and an audio tour.
I'm going to quibble about that, Alex, but
okay.
People who do our tours
that's good. Let me come back to Emma now quickly, because that's exactly why we got Sarah, who is at the moment a chatbot, but she'll eventually be a voice, a bit like Alexa. I mean, we didn't start with the idea that we wanted to get rid of tour guides. I mean, that's really not the idea at all. But we started with the basis that we are building tours that you can do in a self-driving car, and you can't put a tour guide in a self-driving car. So we had to think about how we replace the tour guide. They're no longer in a hop-on, hop-off bus. They're in a self-driving car. What is that conversational experience that you have? So that's exactly what we spend all our time doing, is writing dialogue. So for example, today's dialogue discussion was, how do you tell someone that they ought to go to the toilet because there's not a toilet break for another half an hour after this? So we were writing that dialogue today. And that is what we do as an AI tour guide, is write dialogue that then gets interjected into the conversation. So if the customer says, where's the nearest toilet, we actually can converse in a proper English or any 17 languages conversation and say, well, actually it's over here. So we do have that conversation. So that's where an AI tour guide is slightly different to an audio tour, because we're trying to recreate the human. We haven't quite got there yet, but that's where we're trying to get to.
And how long before that is kind of available to market, in terms of somebody who will tell you to go to the toilet, or will tell you to, watch the busy traffic ahead, or whatever the scenario may be?
I mean, at the moment, if you take her on a walking tour, she'll tell you to turn left, turn right. She does all the turn-by-turn navigation instructions. How long? If you look at where people like Alexa or all these other digital humans are going, that tech is already there. The only problem is that the tours and activities market is so small that it's taking us a little time to bring that tech into this sector, because we're never going to make enough money out of it to pay like the tech that the big sort of conversational developers are throwing at this in terms of the money to train the AI models is literally tens of millions of dollars. And we don't have that cash. So we're having to apply technology that becomes commercially available to the tours and activities problem rather than research money. And that is, so yeah, I think it's there now, and another 6-12 months, it will be there.
available to market at 6 to 12 months?
It's on live today. You can chat today.
No, but I mean, but in terms of having that 15 hours accompaniment or companionship, or however you want to term it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of there. I mean, Sarah, she doesn't say very much at the moment, so she tends to be a bit more reactive rather than proactive, and that's something we've got to change. But yeah, another 6 months of development, and be there.
And I mean, I want to come to Adam's defense here and say that it's a bit of a false dichotomy, because, you know, we have, say, a tapas tour in Madrid, and you can do that over an hour. You can do that over 2 days, and we have people who do that. And we also have a human who's chosen all of the destinations on that route, introduced them, and will tell you if there's not going to be another opportunity to go to the bathroom, because they know.
Yeah.
So I don't think, you know, you don't need AI or a chatbot to solve that problem.
No, you don't initially
have an actual person solve that
in
problem.
2020. You don't. Well, okay, Emma, that's a great question. So one of the things I've looked at, and I'm talking about 3-4 years time, is the impact of 5G. Now, 5G gives us the ability to stream. So one of the things we can start doing is streaming a hologram of a tour guide into an autonomous vehicle. So if you want to keep humans, we need to stream holograms of tour guides, because you can't put the tour guide in the autonomous vehicle. So we can have the tour guide sat in a call center, if you like that, and offering their tours remotely, hologrammed into a vehicle. So we can keep the humans in the loop if we want to, but it looks a bit clunky. So I'm kind of like, okay, maybe we'll go that way in 5 years' time, but right now we're not.
I think right now the opportunity is for creating a slight hybrid approach to deal with the new customer sentiment, really. And people more than ever, I believe, and certainly all the research we see, is that people want to have local experiences. They actually want to do things with local people, you know. They don't want to do it all the time. And I think this is where tour operators have gone wrong in the last few years. You know, back at Insight, when I was CEO there, we were always creating lots of sort of private or personal experiences, but they weren't so personal because you were with a lot of other people. And that's not really what people want. They want to be able to have some breakaway moments where they go and do personalized things. And I think that's where all this technology can mix very well with legacy type products. You know, it's creating those hybrid situations that still allow the local person, the local guide to be engaged, but letting people do things on their own in a way whenever they wish. It's that flexibility too that they're looking for.
Yeah, so I tend to agree a bit with John on that. First of all, understand, I feel a little bit like, you know, my grandfather arguing against technological advances, but I feel that there's some spaces where human experiences, you know, are a bit, you know, the human experience is a bit irreplaceable. And I mean, the key word there is experience. And I must admit that I'm not too familiar at all with the technology that Alex has developed, you know, and I imagine it is far more advanced than what, you know, you'd see on a big bus or a tour of the, you know, Sagrada Familia. I reference those specifically because I experienced them both when I was in Barcelona last year with my children. And, you know, to be frank, they were absolutely awful. It's probably to Ian's point. Almost everyone on the big bus was asleep. So, I mean, I think over the past 10 years, we've experienced a significant, you know, increasing number of tourists that are seeking to get the most authentic experience possible. Again, I think that was John's point. They want smaller groups. They want they want to feel like, you know, they're part of the local culture and they're part of the local people. And I think that, you know, you can't just point out the Empire State Building and tell them the history of it. Tourists are too informed now. You know, they want to hear real stories. You know, they have kind of crazy off the wall questions. And I just don't think that, you know, they want to live in the moment. And I just don't see how, you know, these robots are going to be able to facilitate that. I think that we've seen in the past, over the past 20 years, you know, countless companies they've attempted to fully automate their customer service and things like that. And it was a nice experience, but so many of them face backlash from their customers that they reverted, right? I mean, it's not a situation where, you know, like we go in a local grocery store and instead of the cashier, you know, you have an automatic checkout, which I get, right? There's not so much of a human experience that someone's trying to create. So I think that there's, you know, certainly some people who'll be interested in the cool factor and the new factor of it all. But for those who are truly, you know, seeking a real, authentic experience, like so many travelers are now, I just don't see how a robot is going to offer that.
And that, to go on with to what Vaughn was saying, and John too, the idea of the hybrid experience, and I experienced that at my place of work at the Observatory, because the guides, we do presentations using a very elaborate form of technology, shifting screens, and using the technology to help us tell our stories and to help us create an interactive experience. And so we're doing basically a performance. We're presenting the information about New York City. The machine's called City Pulse. You may have seen it. If you've been to the Observatory, you may have seen me doing these shows. So it does become very personalized, very interactive. Every tour ambassador does theirs differently. The technology is there. I mean, we've even, my team has adapted to it too, to make it more personal. So every guide who is giving a City Pulse show does it their own way, makes it their own thing. And then afterwards, the guests have that moment to come and speak to us, to ask us what to do. I mean, I will do a show and I will see there are a lot of children in the audience. My children are much older now, but I'll do a show that's appropriate for children that age. And then the parents afterwards can say, all right, they're getting really antsy. You know, we have a lot of jet lag. What should we do now? And where should we go now? And they can have that moment with somebody who can say, oh, I think somebody needs a snack. When you leave here, you go down the street and you will find this or you'll find that. There's a playground where they can run around. That's the kind of interaction, like Vaughn was saying, people want that local experience. They want somebody who knows the city, who knows the site, and who can give them the insights that will make it a personal and make it a special moment. So they go home and they say, oh, I did this and this because a local told me how to do that. And that local is an experienced guide.
But okay, I mean, and I agree with you that there's nothing that can replace that dynamic interaction with an actual human. But I think what you've also seen that's pretty undeniable over the last decade is audio becoming something that people spend a lot of time with, right? Podcasts, audiobooks, these are now incredibly large categories. You know, you're talking about billions of listens across, you know, multiple years. And I think that often people feel like they have a fairly close relationship with the people who host the podcasts that they listen to. These are not strangers to them, you know, these are not robots. These are people that they might almost describe as their friends. And there's something about a voice, a human voice, that is undeniably intimate, especially when that person is not just sort of reading off something that you might, you know, copy and paste from Wikipedia, but is talking about the things from their neighborhood that they love, that they don't love, that they're worried about. These are the things that give you an entry point as an outsider into what it might be like to be from that place. And I think that audio is the perfect medium for that, especially where it encourages people to speak subjectively.
Oh, I agree.
Okay, Alex, you were going to jump in a second ago.
Yeah, I
want to go to Mitch for a question.
I was going to say, I 100% agree with Vaughn. There are so many things challenging with the technology to make this anywhere close to the experience that a human can deliver. I'm just going to accept that. But I also sort of counter that slightly by saying, let's take that as an accepted fact that these experiences are not going to be as good as human experiences. Let's just take that. But this is a little bit like hoteliers in 2010 arguing about Airbnb, because all the hoteliers said, no one's going to want to go to Airbnb because there's no breakfast buffet and there's no spa facilities. And all the Airbnb people were like, well, actually, all the customers went to Airbnb because it was cheaper. So the market shifted, even though it was a poorer experience. So we can have an argument about whether or not it's a poorer or a better experience. And I will agree with you, it's a poorer experience. But the market shifted. And that's what I'm saying is going to happen, is the market's going to shift. I'm not saying that it's a better experience. I'm saying it's a poorer experience, but it's a cheaper experience. And that's the mainstream product. Now for luxury will always be about humans to humans, because that's what luxury might be defined by. But it's a poorer experience, this. And but it will still capture the mainstream market.
Okay, go on, Von.
No, I was going to say, yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I agree. I think that there's always going to be, different markets. That there's always going to be someone who's available for, a shittier experience. You'll have some people who you'll go to the McDonald's when there's a Capitol Grill, across the street, and some who just can't afford it, or some who just have the preference. I'm sorry. I don't even know what to do here with you, Adam. But where there's a crappy restaurant and fine dining, right? So yeah, you certainly would have, the market for both. So yeah, I'm not suggesting that you don't do this. I'm just suggesting that we do make it clear, we do make it an understanding that nothing replaces the tour guide or the tour director who offers that personal experience, who offers those real stories, who, and to Ian's, to kind of comment on what Ian was saying, I mean, certainly the podcast, people listen to podcasts, but I think it's a totally different experience when you're sitting and you're listening to a podcast, as opposed to you're out on a tour and you're actually doing things, you're actually moving about and you're interacting, and things are happening real time and things are changing real time, as opposed to just sitting and listening at a particular moment. So yeah, I mean, certainly, Alex, I'm not suggesting that there's no market for this and you're wasting your time by any means. I'm just suggesting that for anyone to suggest that these robots or this experience will replace what is offered by our guides and our tour directors is, definitely a far stretch.
I know Emma wants to come in. Can I just kind of come back on that?
Yeah, go on, Alex, very, very quickly, and then we'll bring Emma in. And I've got a burning question for Mitch.
There's different kinds of guide experiences. So there are those that I would describe as third person. So you as a tour guide take someone into the brewery and say, here is how the brewer makes the beer. Sure. And then there's the second kind of tour guide, which is first person, which is, when I was growing up in this area, this is what we did, and it's all first person storytelling. There is no way I can recreate the first person storytelling. Ian can, because he's got an audio tour, and so can John. But I can't, because I'm doing it via a robot, and Ian and John are doing it by the characters themselves. So that's slightly different. But I think that there are some kind of products that really suit this, and some which don't at all. Food tours are very navigational. Scooter tours are very navigational. Whereas telling the history of something or other that happened in the 1960s in an area, well, there's no way you'd want me to deliver that. You would want that to come from a human. I understand that. So different products, different types of technology.
Thanks, Alex. Hang on, I'm just a little bit conscious of time because Mitch has promised we'll be under an hour, and we don't like to disappoint Mitch.
I rescind my promise. I rescind my promise.
All the time.
I rescind my promise.
Good. It's about time you rescinded one of your promises. Emma, you were going to say something.
He's also surrounded by British people. That's the problem. There's a lot of British people on this call.
I'm a dual citizen. I was born in the UK, so I'm British too. So you've got a lot of Brits, right? So, no, but I was going to say, so the idea, like you mentioned, the switch to Airbnb and how the market changed, and then how the clients adapted. And I think it's, with the technology we're creating and adapting and building a technology for the new market, and tour guides can also do the same. I mean, that's one thing. When you have a person, they can learn new skills. They can learn new ways to tell a story. They can learn new ways to interact with their guests. I mean, it's something that TripSchool is working on, Bonn is working on, the diversity project. Ganic guides are doing the same thing too, to be able to tell stories in a different way to address the issues that are prevalent now, and then to address the type of traveler. I mean, one thing I forgot who mentioned how, our travelers today are very, very smart. They've done the research, they can look everything up, but they know, who the influencer went to this place or that place, so they'll be following, say, an Instagram, and they want to have that Instagrammable experience. They have so much information at their disposal that they want to use, and so they're coming to a place, and they're very savvy travelers. So they may not want the mass group experience, and I found this myself. I mean, the guided tours I would do for the Italian companies that I work for, they were getting smaller and smaller, and the age demographic was changing too. You don't have young people who want to go on a group tour with 30 other people. They just don't want to do it. But you may have a group of retirees who do. And so the guide can adapt to that kind of situation. And so seeing a tour guide as sort of the personal version of an Uber or the personal version of an Airbnb. Just look at Airbnb with their experiences. And it's interesting, Ian, that you mentioned a podcast and listening to a podcast and getting all that information. One of the companies I work for is a podcast, and the Bowery Boys podcast, they started walking tours because of the history of these areas was so interesting. People wanted to have that one-on-one personal experience. And so I've done those, and then the Bowery Boys themselves will show up at the end of the tour. And so people are thrilled because they're actually meeting the person and who they've been listening to for so long. And so again, that.
So I think, that I agree with you. Small group tours, private tours make complete sense. And almost Von's analogy of going to a fine dining restaurant versus going to McDonald's, I think in some ways, large group tours and the difficulty of trying to kind of corral people. And I mean, I don't have experience as a guide, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but to who wants to, if there's an alternative to flipping burgers at McDonald's, then, and you can automate that so that, the stuff that you would do with large groups can be done through technology, and you have more time for private tours, for niche tours, for the stuff that really excites you. And the self-guided tours offer an entry point for people to discover who you are, to hear your voice, to connect with you that way. I mean, I think that these are complementary products, and we're not talking about competition. We're talking about opening up the market to locals. The Bowery Boys there is actually a perfect example where, you're using audio as a way of interesting locals in stuff that they would otherwise just walk straight past.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Mitch, Mitch, I've got a question for you. Anyone who's had a conversation with you for more than 5 minutes will be aware of Mitch Moments. Or Mitch Magic, or whatever it is you brand it, which is kind of your.
Clearly, I haven't branded it very well. You can't even remember.
I only pretend to pay attention when you talk to me. So this is something you advocate in training with tour guides when. It's finding those special little moments on a tour that only you can deliver because it's spontaneous and it's kind of in the moment, and that's what actually creates that really strong emotional connection and makes people remember you and the brand they traveled with, etc. Do you envisage a time in the future when you license that knowledge and sell it to the likes of Ian, Alex and John to plug into their platforms?
Excellent question. I can't wait to get that after I first say 37 things to respond to the discussion so far. I'm really liking this because it feels like this is a discussion that we have, like the ghost of tourism future plus the ghost of tourism, present, and then also the ghost of tourism past, which I guess is Vaughn. I think that sorry, I know you're the best, I guess. I think the dynamics of this argument are really interesting because in a certain sense, we've got the mad scientist Alex who can basically say whatever a human can do, essentially 20, 30, 70 years down the road, our woman in a car is going to be able to do that as well. And absolutely, and this is recorded, which means I am not going to sit here and make any predictions or prognostications about 10 years down the road saying that that's impossible. Everything is possible as we sort of continue to watch technology develop. And so, and I'm into that. I mean, at TripSchool, we teach nothing but the special moments, the great storytelling, the phenomenal ways in which technology also promotes connection with other people. And so I, in no way, am against anything. In fact, we send guides to Ian to develop voice maps in order to develop these products that are sort of augmenting. And I see a lot of use cases for the way in which these kind of hybrid models can sustain and support tour guides that are humans, and also develop these auxiliary markets of AI bots and everything else. And and they're going to coexist, as far as I'm concerned, for a while. I think we're all going to be dead before I'm like seeing tour guides just in a mass graveyard saying, I wish we got more work, but Alex's cars ran us over. It's not going to be happening in a while because of just demographics. If we've got another 20 years of baby boomers around, no offense, baby boomers, but if we didn't mean to put that clock out on you, but if we've got 20 years of boomers, then we've got 20 years of people who want their hands held, right? We've got 20 people, okay, 10, fine, Alex, 10 minutes. We have people that are gonna want to choose that premium product because they've got a nest egg and they're gonna be able to take an insight vacation with John Bolding's ex-company and have that deep, personal, engaging experience. And I love that too, but I'm also of a different generation slightly in that I love a mobile tour as much as I love an in-person one. I love that moment of having just a deep connection with an individual that then connects me to a place in a way that feels special to that moment. In other words, it's not the content that's special, it's not the person that's replicable, it's whatever is in the middle of that triangle of a human and incredible stories, some of which are personal, some of which are just good content, and then the place that we happen to be at the moment. And, you know, for example, I talk all the time about the idea of a wow moment being meeting your group at the corner of a street in New York City, walking them down Fifth Avenue, them not knowing why they're with you and where they're going. And then at that moment, I bring them in and I open the doors, and it's a church they'd never seen before. They walk in and there's the boys choir singing because it's timed with evensong at St. Thomas Fifth Avenue. And it is an incredible moment that by the end of it, we're all hugging. And certainly I don't see a future in which hugging a robot yet is going to be a solution to that, which is why I don't think we need to keep coming back to the robot can do this and so just give up now. Obviously, there's always going to be what's called a sort of premium experience, and Insight Vacations is always going to offer that, Globus or whatever these companies are. You're always going to get that. And so it's this world of hybrid kind of middle ground that I'm really interested in. And for me, there's three things. Since Alex started with his list of four, I'm going to do a list of three. One is the storytelling aspect. I mean, Ian, I think what you're doing with VoiceMap is fantastic, and it's connecting tour guides who are also phenomenal tour guides, or tour operators who are also excellent guides, with the possibility to upsell what they're doing and connect the product line after you're gone. And I'm deeply interested in the economics of getting tour guides to be paid better, tour directors to be earning types of side income that harness their knowledge, but also they don't have to be there, because as long as you're human capital, then you've got to wake up, you've got to get allocated tours by these companies, or you've got to go out and hustle. And there's no way to essentially do what a tech company can do, which is just create all of these residual sources of income that happen every time somebody buys an app. So I love the idea of a guide sitting there and developing content that is additional to whatever they do in a human way. And then they can sit there and ring in a passive income on the side while they also do what they love, which is that sort of human connection. I'm really interested in that. I think to take it a level further than that, I'm also implicated because our last Future of Travel session was on responsible tourism, on the problems of over-tourism, on the problems of things like leakage and things like the economics of visiting all of these types of different destinations. I'm interested in technology as a solution to this problem of over-tourism, in the sense of offering the kinds of content that bring people elsewhere than to Barcelona and Dubrovnik and to Venice. I love the idea of sort of the world of storytelling becoming omnipresent when I want that and where I am, and just a sense of discovery to new places. But I'm equally worried about what had been gentle indications of sort of fast food tourism, which is the idea of let's just bring tons more people here, give them that cheap, lower end experience. And to me, my hesitancy, and I'm not trying to be a troglodyte or a Luddite or any of the ites or an antiquarian, but my worry is the dumbing down of what is so unique and special about tourism. And frankly, I really don't want to say this here, but I'm going to. I think people should be traveling less. I think for all sorts of reasons, travel should be something special. It should be less frequent. I don't think Qantas Airlines should just be flying their airplanes around just to like stick bodies in there and go and emit. And I do think we have a responsibility to understand, I guess, on an experiential level and also on a sort of global level, whether it's economics of app money going to an app developer in Silicon Valley versus, you know, developing local economies and supporting local vendors, and that level of, I guess, just what we're doing, to the idea of what we should be doing when we travel. So there you go.
I think you're picking up a lot of stuff there that's around the right sentiment at the moment. I mean, Skiff did that. Made that comment recently in an article that you know, this is the travel and tourism industry's Napster moment, as was the case with the recording industry, the entertainment industry. You know, it's that moment we're at the moment. But digital does a number of things. I mean, it does tread very lightly. Let's remember that as well. You know, you're not actually producing equipment necessarily, you know, especially if it's smartphone based. Requires no extra hardware then. It reduces printed materials, it optimizes tourism flows, and it reduces crowding, and it does all sorts of stuff like that. And it educates, and it does engage people more with destinations than if they'd just been wandering around on their own. But I do think this hybrid approach is really, that's what people are sort of looking for. They're not looking for one exclusive channel. I think it's the hybrid approach that allows that. And one of the things that we've had massive traction on is this smartphone guiding for tour guides. It's a really big thing now, because it doesn't matter what your group size is. There's no logistics. We don't have to ship you any equipment. It's all done on the smartphone, and it's long distance. I can talk to you intercontinentally on this equipment, you know. As people can be back at the hotel sick or in a wheelchair and can't get up some steps, they can still be part of it. So guides can use technology as well, you know, as Emily said.
And John, I think that's what's so interesting about Vox in particular, is you do have this sort of hybrid lineup to augment the experience of human and also to offer these other ways of engaging digitally. And I mean, I'll say this much, you know, at TripSchool, we teach tour guides and tour directors to not be afraid of technology, to utilize things like creating a Google Maps folder that you can share publicly with the guests on your tour in order to deliver things like recipes or audio recordings or whatever. And it's essentially technology that is begging to be replaced by something interesting. And that sort of hybrid engagement is so important, because guests do feel more supported during those moments of free time when they have a map and maybe a couple of points of commentary or whatever. And I mean, we're teaching them right now to do that on Google My Maps. I would love a platform that allows for these types of hybrid developed content delivery that recognizes the value of the human, but then also helps that human continue to connect in those moments of downtime or before or after the tour. And I think that's a phenomenal opportunity.
So go on, Alex.
There's one statement. So in the last 4 weeks, I've hired 20 freelancers to create the content for Sarah, and half of them have been tour guides and half of them have been travel writers. So that kind of gives you that breakdown.
That leads nicely into my next kind of very quick question, actually, was how can tour guides and actually tour operators, because there's a number of tour operators watching this, how can they embrace this and actually make the most of it in the next 12 months, 2 years, 4 years, so that they can create that hybrid model that John's talking about, and they can not get left behind by Sarah and you know, her autonomous vehicle, and what do we do?
Right. So I'll tell you what I think is actually create time inside your itineraries so that you have an opportunity to include some of these things, to include some experiences that Ian's got or Alex has got or we've got, include them within an itinerary. You know, so it allows people that opportunity to do things locally. And if you don't do this stuff, people are going to choose other routes, I think. You know, they don't want to be in a crowd all the time. They want those moments to break away and do their own thing. And that's very important. But they also, I think, want the experience of a real live person when they can. So do it now. You need to do it now is the thing, to get ready for post-COVID recovery.
Yeah, and that's so I was going to talk about too, John, because the technology that you've developed and the technology that's out there that enables tour guides to continue to deliver their tours, to give tours, but to stay safe, to stay physically distanced. I mean, we have guides who are are starting, I'm going to be doing one in October, who's starting live on the ground tours again. And so having some kind of supplemental technology to help is key. But also to what Mitch was saying, to be able to give your people something that they can do post-tour, or perhaps some pre-tour prep, or even during the tour, during their downtime. And so countless times when I would have my groups, I would have them for 4 hours and then I'd meet them again for supper. So they'd have that afternoon free. And so I would sit there with them and tick off on the map. You go here, this is where you can do this, what you can see. And technology can replace so much of that. Like Mitch said, with a Google Doc that you send them, or you download a map, or you send them a photograph of the place that they can go and the things that they can do when they're not with you. So they're bringing that experience with them. And so that's what you're developing too, Ian, with your work, that you can have something that will supplement what you've done with your live guide, or that will get you prepared for what you're doing with your live guide. Because the last thing is, as president of a Guides Association of New York City, I want our guides to work. We need to be working, and we want that. And people are craving human interaction. I mean, don't forget, we've all been staring at screens for the past now 9 months practically. And so just to see somebody, just to be at a location with other guests, with other people, you don't want those massive crowds, but you do want humans. Humans are social animals, and we need to be socializing again. And so technology can help us do that safely and maintain that human contact that we're all craving so much.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily cost anything either. We're an open platform. You can create a tour, and we help people through the process. And kind of guide them to a really sort of high quality product, because we think that's what's been missing from the marketplace. And there's no cost involved in that process. So, we want to make this easy and kind of not require that there's a steep learning curve on the tech side for people who haven't worked with audio before, who haven't used a self-guided tour that tells you where to go, that requires symmetry between your travel time and your audio time. These things are not straightforward if you've never done it before. And so that's where our editors that work with our guides come in.
And Ian, just quickly, roughly, Alex, what's the commercial relationship then between your software and the tour guide who would create the tour? Is it commission based? You say it's free, but do they get anything out of it? How does that work?
So yeah, I mean, the publisher chooses the price of the tour, and then we pay a royalty. It depends on what sort of plan they're on. There's a free plan, and on that plan it's a 50% royalty, and that's for sales through our channels. If the sales happen through the guide's own channels, then the structure of it is different, and basically, we charge a small amount per copy, and the rest of it. So, we would be looking at, say, 31 cents per copy, and the guide would be selling that on for $5. So we're making a sort of a very small amount on each sale, with the guide taking most of it.
Okay, thanks. So there are opportunities there straight away, actually, for somebody to jump on that if they wanted to. Sorry, I cut somebody off. Who was trying to speak? Alex, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, if Ian's going to do his commercials, I better do mine. So we pay tour guide $210 to design a route, and some have done multiple over the last few weeks. So we actually pay people to do the work, but that's good because that means that they comply with our brief rather than them letting them do their own thing. And then we pay a 10% royalty downstream, but because our tours are free, that royalty is of the commission that we receive from bookability in the destination. So if we ticket going into a museum, or we ticket incorporating hiring a local tour guide, we do that on a regular commission basis like an OTA would, and we give 10% of that commission to the route designer. So ours is a bookability model. But we pay $210 or 160 GBP up front, and we're just about to introduce in the next couple of weeks paying people to go on tours, but they have to write a report as to how they found the experience. So that's both on whether or not the platform is any good, and also secondly, the actual route design is any good. So we're beginning to pay people to go on experiences, and they can, just like Von would tell me that it's completely nonsensical, that'd be fine. But that's I am paying people to give me that feedback, and then we'll find out. And then, depending on how bad it is, but I will make this commitment, because I did commit this in a blog post last October, I will publish all of that feedback, so you guys can see all of the feedback from professional tour guides as to how they found our experience. And that will be on our website at some point in this year.
Well, Alex, I'll tell you, with some of the virtual experiences I've seen, you'd have to pay me to go on them. So
that's fine.
I appreciate it. But no, seriously, I will say that I think that what you're doing is, and I'm certainly glad that we had this conversation, because it certainly shed a lot of light on, on the topic. But, what you're doing essentially is, as you mentioned, replacing some of these tours that may not require this human experience, like you said, in a situation with the food tour. Now, we can argue how valuable, you might want to argue how valuable a guy would be on a food tour. I would certainly make that argument with you of how much value they bring, but I get your point. Also, I think what it does is it really supports what we're doing with, group tour professionals and IATDG, what Mitch is doing with TripSchool and what Emma was doing with Ganic, of, essentially forcing our guides and our tour directors and our tour operators to really step their game up, right? Because if you have, like you said, you have these people who come in and they're not doing a great job of giving a first-person tour, as you mentioned, and you could have a robot to easily replace that. Well, what we have to do is we have to tell our folks, hey, listen, these robots are on your ass, so you need to go ahead and you need to step your game up. You need to learn more. You need to do better, because if not, Alex and his, and his bots are coming to take your job away. So,
we're coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And essentially, the same with John and with Ian are offering, same type of thing. It really supports what we're doing. It gives them, it gives our people tools to go out and to provide a better job to the customer, because, that's essentially what we're here to do.
But I liked Emma's comment earlier on about how to incorporate digital within an overall, within a human delivered experience. Alongside. A good example of where we're doing it with food tours is a food tour company might do an urban food tour, but they might have a vineyard that's 30 miles out of the city. And that it would not be commercially viable to put a tour guide onto that vineyard tour, because it's going to end up being a 6-hour tour. And to put a tour guide on a 6-hour tour, it's got to be a certain amount of money. So it might be a human delivered tour within the city. And then for the leg that they go out to the vineyard, that's when it becomes self-guided again. And of course, there are hosts, there are humans that we like to have at the vineyard. So it's not like there's no human, it's just not your tour guide. So I think there's lots of ways that you can kind of incorporate this technology. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It's kind of, you just have to work out, what works in your destination for fitting it into your offering.
Well, I just said, let Emma and I tell you when we need your robots. Otherwise, just stay. No.
Well, yeah, I'll come over. I'm going to demonstrate to you. Whereabouts are you, Von? I'm going to come find you. I need to bring my robots and demonstrate them to you. I can see this.
We'll have an opportunity for you in November, actually, for you to do that, Alex. So I'll tell you about that in a minute.
I'm kind of interested, just as we're winding this down. I had to cut Adam off because I don't want you to cut this session off quite yet, because I do want
lost
to
your
hear.
voice.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you for a second. I think it was mine.
Okay. I love all this. I love the vineyards. I love the idea of guides essentially replicating themselves in several different places at the same time, earning residuals off of that or commissions. I love the business model, Alex, that you have, and Ian, both of them are very different and they appeal in different ways to guides. But looking right now, we have a lot of guides who are essentially cobbling together from PowerPoint and with Zoom virtual tours, and virtual tours at the moment are essentially somebody talking into a camera, flipping through the slides, or recorded video. And there's innovation, but it's the real infancy of this sort of armchair travel movement. And I'm interested only because there are sort of economic ramifications for people that see their industry is not recovering for a year or 2 years yet, wherever they are. And also there's accessibility questions around this for accessible travel. Have you thought about the reverse of, of artificial intelligence, but of doing some sort of VR experience or some sort of version that allows those of us that want to travel but aren't going to actually go to Paris to kind of beef up the virtual tour game? I wondered what your thoughts are around that.
Yeah, great question.
Our product has that in Vox Connect, which is this remote smartphone guiding. It can be remote, it can be local, it doesn't matter. Next year, in the first quarter, video will come with it as well. So a tour guide in New York can be guiding to the internet, can be guiding to a club in Sydney in Australia, whatever, and then do a virtual tour around the city. So that's already here. Much more besides.
I mean, 15% of our sales are people who only ever use the tour at home. And I mean, there's a mode that instead of having automated GPS playback, just runs through the audio, like listening to a podcast or an audio book, and then there are pictures and there's a map, and you can also do 360-degree videos and augmented reality stuff that you can interact with on the screen as part of your tour. And yeah, I think I saw a number saying that Airbnb with their virtual experiences had racked up $2 million in revenue. So there's clearly a market for it.
Cool. Yeah, there is. Absolutely. I've got a question. Alex has kind of answered this question already, but there's a few questions been popping up from the listeners about the quality control. How do you guys know that the tour is any good? Now, Alex has already answered this because he's paying people loads of money to create the tours, so get involved. And email Alex. He's paying a fortune. And also, I'm joking. And he is, paying tour guides to go and check the quality of it. Alex, you want to correct me? Yeah, go on.
Yeah. So we have a 3-stage quality process. So the first is we have a job board where people pitch to do the work in the first place. So when we say we want a food tour in Stockholm, we get 3 or 4 people saying, hey, I can create you a food tour. So we only choose the best person out of that on that job board. So that's how we get quality in the first instance. In the second instance, we get a second route designer who's not the original route designer to go on the tour and give us a feedback report. And that happens pretty soon after publishing, but before it algorithmically gets very scored high. So mostly consumers would never see it at that stage until it's had a human do it as a trial run. And thirdly, in complete contrast to human tour guides, we have a very deep set of analytics that we can do on the tour itself, because we're tracking people in order to deliver the content. So we know where people drop off. We know where this happens. We know where people are enjoying themselves. And so we get a much fuller set of analytics than you would on a human tour and TripAdvisor reviews. So we have a 3-step process to ensure quality. But you're absolutely right. Quality is a thing.
Okay, thanks. Ian, how are you guys checking the quality of everyone that's kind of uploading tours onto your platform? I listened to the 5-minute preview for the Whitby tour earlier, and I'm wishing I kind of found it 6 weeks ago before I went. It was really good, I thought, but I clearly not from there, no idea if it's correct. How are you checking that?
So we don't fact check our tours, but I mean, who fact checks live guides? I've been on
the customers usually
on the same place and heard totally different stories about the same things. So I don't feel that that's our role. Our role is to make sure that it works as an audio tour. So that means that we have, as I've talked about, an editor who's assigned to each tour and sort of takes people through the process. And that's more about making sure the directions are clear, making sure there's symmetry between audio and travel time. And then we help people to record the best possible quality that they can do using the tools they have available. We edit that audio for them. We also have the tours tested at multiple stages. They're tested using a robot voice before they're then recorded and tested again using that recorded voice. And, we have obviously ratings through the OTAs, ratings through the app stores, and we have our own internal ratings. We've got almost 6,000 ratings now internally across our tours, and the average rating is 4.6 out of 5. So, you know, that's the people are responding pretty well to the quality of the tours, of the content.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
Can I just add one comment? The reason why quality is such an issue for Ian and myself, I'm just putting words in Ian's mouth perhaps, sorry Ian, is that we need to be in hundreds, if not thousands of cities. So we can't create this content from the center. So if we want to create tours in 500 cities, we're going to need 1,000 tour guides. So of course there's going to be quality issues. The alternative is to do something like a YouTube model where anyone can create anything. Well, I don't want to go that road, but this.
Those are the values I was talking about, because people have done that,
Yeah,
and it just
exactly. So if you want to be in 500 cities, you want to be in 1,000 cities, you're going to need 1,000 tour guides or 2,000 tour guides creating content. So you need to have very strong content quality processes like we've got, because you're not going to be able to do it by hiring 5 employees. You have to go to locals because we're looking for the local stories. And so it has to be someone local doing it. And therefore you're going to have quality issues, but we think we've got it.
Just to throw in, just to throw in,
John, you go.
Yeah, very quickly. So we work across two sides. We're working B2B. We're also working B2B2C. On the B2B2C side, we control all our own content. We build our own content. We're a content producer as much as we are a software company. So there's very, very strong controls. We're using real professionals in it, including guides and so on, people who are very, very experienced translators and so on, because we're multilingual too. I mean, Vox is at least 6 languages in every destination. And then we've got the B2B side where our tour operator partners are using their guides and their tour directors and whatever it might be for their purposes to create content that we then put into apps, which allows their customers to have this extra dimension of flexibility. So that's part of it. But we're on a big franchise roll at the moment with a new product called Vox City Walks, which is going worldwide and is already expanding with live guides and self-guided together in the same product as a Vox product. So that's something really good, and that goes across both disciplines.
I think the 3 companies, Adam and Mitch, that you've chosen to have on this session are the 3 companies who care about quality, because that's why we're on this conversation. I think there's a long tail of companies who don't, but you've chosen panelists.
I think we can definitely. I mean, yeah, we kind of knew that beforehand, but I think we can definitely tell that from how passionate you guys are about it. Absolutely. Emma, you were going to say something a second ago.
Yeah, I was going to add to the. I mean, the quality of the product is crucially important. I mean, it has to work properly and it has to give a good experience, but the quality of the content is also key. I mean, I've had people say to me, first of all, when I say I'm a professional tour guide, they're like, oh, really? I didn't know that was an actual job. It's like, well, yeah, it is an actual job, and people actually take it seriously. But they say, oh, don't you just make stuff up? And I'm like, I've never made stuff up. And before I became a guide, I was an adjunct professor of art and architectural history. So I tend to do art and architectural history tours because that's my training as an art historian. So I would never make stuff up. Guides don't make things up. And so the problem is if somebody does an audio recording or does something and they are making stuff up or they are giving inaccurate facts, then that sort of taints the whole pool, because people say, well, I listened to this guide who told me all of these things that don't make any sense, but it was recorded, so it's got to be truth. Like, you find something on the internet. I read it on Facebook. It's true. I listened to it on a recorded guide, so it's accurate. It may get you to the right location, but if it's telling you a story that doesn't make any sense, or if it's telling you some inaccurate facts, then that's a huge problem. I mean, I think there should be quality control. There should be checking the content. You should be, not just to know that the direction is correct, that you turn right here, or you turn left here, or you walk 500 meters one way or another way. But as you're talking, that as the person is being led around, they are getting accurate information. I mean, guides, professional guides, good guides pride themselves in knowing their stuff and in being able to not just to deliver the content in a good way, but to deliver good content. I mean, we do certification classes, but guides are constantly learning. I mean, that's what we've been using this time for, is to learn our material in a better way. And so when people say, oh, anybody can be a tour guide or anybody can write this content, No, that's completely untrue. You need, I mean, I can see behind Mitch all his books. You know, I've got some of my books behind me.
It's a Zoom virtual screen.
Yeah.
Can I just make one counterpoint on that, Emma? There's, out of my experience for my content, do you know what? Actually, it's turned out that it's travel writers who have created the best content, not the tour guides. Because travel writers are used to writing, here's how you spend an afternoon in kind of articles. And tour guides are sitting there worrying too much about the operational dynamics of it, because they're like, oh, I'm going to have to think about how I'm going to deliver this. And so it turns out that when I talk to my editor and we just look at our content, we're like, we can tell the content that's written by a travel writer and the content that's written by a tour guide, and the travel writers are ahead of the tour guides.
Well,
hey, Alex. Hey, Alex. Some tour
guys, we're supposed to be winding down, not kicking off. Right at the end.
Let me just flip the script for a minute. I've been very well behaved. Alex, first of all, there are some tour guides that can walk and talk at the same time. But I think this hits on actually a really interesting counterpoint to flip the script from the beginning of this conversation, where we said apps suffer from a reputation problem of people downloading a bunch of bad apps. So do tour guides. Sometimes the word tour guide inspires pure boredom because they think every word out of their mouth is going to be in 1862. And I have to say that, I mean, my passion and my mission in this industry has been to change tour guides who think content is commentary delivered in a boring, factual, bullet point kind of scenario in which if I don't cover every single date and every single battle name and every single general in this, then I haven't done the place justice. And so you're right, we chose this panel for your passion for content. And I think it's not to say that tour guides are bad, Alex, that travel writers do a better job, but they're getting at more naturally because they are travel writers, something that Ian, as an app developer who comes from a journalism background, it's where's the story, and make that the centerpiece. I mean, your first tour was Ian McKellen leading an incredible personal sort of walk through London. Well, that not all guides are created equal, and guides do. I mean, I do storytelling workshops and technology workshops all the time, and my ending slide is always the robots are coming, and it's because guides need to up their game and up their storytelling quality and understand content is about connection. It's about bringing in all of these different pieces that a travel writer or journalist knows how to do. But it is a shift in the last few years, at least, of the way a tour guide does approach their job, because it always has been hold the flag and say in 1942, and that just doesn't cut it anymore.
I think in the returns for people who get it right are going to be outsized, right? Unfortunately, the really great guides are, you know, as these marketplaces develop and as the returns for having the top selling tour in a large city grows, you're gonna find, I think, a gap growing between people who are able to really do the storytelling, who are able to take people on a journey, and people who, so I think that, you know, these skills are really important, basically.
But that's also one of the reasons why we've got this character, Sarah, because she brings up the level of the poorer guides. So if you are English as a second language, and you know, you're not really quite sure how to write English, to write, you know, do any of this stuff, then she brings that level up. She does slightly bring the level down from the very, very best guides. So Ian has these amazing people on Voice Map who are amazing, but then you might have others too. And we've kind of narrowed them all into some kind of thin sort of section where the brilliant ones aren't amazingly brilliant, but the poor ones aren't poor. So we're kind of got this middle ground because we've created this character. So everyone delivers via the character rather than delivers in their own personality. So
I think the Greeks called it mediocrity.
Yes. Well, yeah. Ask me in 24 months.
Brilliant. Alex, I downloaded Sarah earlier today, actually. And yeah, she was very quick to slide into my DMs, I have to say. But we had an interesting chat for a while.
She'll be more fun in the future. She's a little bit quiet at the moment. She'll do just like Emma was saying earlier on. She'll tell you to get moving. If you're going too slow and something's going to close, she'll say, "Hey guys, you know, you've got to get moving." Yeah.
Great. All right.
We have had a whole bunch of questions, kind of directly to me on the Q&A session. There's not enough time to go through all of them, unfortunately, and also some of them are kind of war and peace efforts that I'm struggling to kind of read and listen to the conversation at the same time. So, I think we've answered probably the pertinent ones in the course of the conversation. So I think it's a good time to kind of say thank you very much to everybody. Really, really appreciate it. This is such a great conversation. We could absolutely sit here for 5 hours and throw things backwards and forwards and talk about it and argue about it. And me personally,
I need my Zoom room.
Yeah, excuse me. Me personally, I'm fascinated by this because my heart is telling me to kind of find all your servers and set fire to them, but my head is thinking, how can I invest? And you know, how can I get on board with this and make it work for me? So I think a lot of people are probably naturally quite torn, but fascinating conversation. And you know, you only have to kind of look 20 years ago, and I guess people would never think that they'd be scanning their own shopping in supermarkets. There's nothing wrong with the quality of the checkout assistants, but you know, not many people use them these days, and I think that's very, very similar case that we've got going on here. So thank you very much.
Shopping assistants have become a real thing in luxury, right? So you still have human shopping assistants. You just don't have checkout people. So this is where you need to position yourself, tour guides. You need to position yourself as a shopping assistant, not as the checkout person.
Alex, I'll challenge you when we can travel and you can come to New York City. I will give you all the best guides, and then you'll see some real quality content delivered in a quality way by a human.
I want to recreate the ride, which is a great New York experience, but doing it via tour guides, and because I think we can do that with what we've got, and then I think that'd be a fun thing to do in New York.
All right, well, we'll see. You better be able to it.
So I think there's going to be a lot of challenges once we can all travel again and meet up. There's going to be some very interesting challenges happening, I think. So from Group Tour Professionals' point of view, we've got a conference happening in November 11th through to the 13th, and there's been a couple of questions on the chat about how people can or where they can find resources to create great tours themselves. We're absolutely going to be having a session on that, and we're also going to be extending this conversation. We haven't quite bottomed that out yet, but actually this panel's been awesome, so if you guys are available on those days, you're more than welcome to get back together and we can see where we've got to at that point. See if Sarah is leaving my DMs alone at that point, or whether she's still harassing me. She still hasn't found a church near to where I live, but you know, I'll forgive her for that.
Where do you live?
Actually,
you don't need to tell me because I can just look it up. I probably shouldn't say that.
You could probably, no doubt.
Not helping.
No doubt. I knew I shouldn't have downloaded it when I was on the toilet. Must wait till I'm fully clothed before downloading apps.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, we're going to introduce selfies soon. I'll bring back selfies. That'll be the next thing.
So yeah, so we will absolutely carry this conversation on at our conference November the 11th to the 13th. So it'd be great if we could do that. I'm sure Mitch will be keen to get us back together anyway as part of his Future of Travel series, which TripSchool are hosting. So we have had a whole bunch of questions, which I'm really sorry we're not going to be able to get to. I think we've answered a lot of them. So thank you very much, everybody. Really appreciate that. And thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Email addresses are in the comments, and we'll put those out if those are shared by you all in the comments. If you don't mind, I'll put it in the follow-up email with the recording, and that way people can continue to bug you into attending.
And Mitch, this is going to be recorded, and we're going to publish this in a few days.
It has been. In fact, Sarah is going to be offering a product where she just walks around listening to us bicker for 2 hours. She's
too busy installing a spy cam in my shower.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Fantastic session. And you Brits go to bed, and South Africans.
Thank you very much.
We're going to bed for 6 months.
Thank you all.
True.
I'll be in touch, Alex.
Bye now. Bye-bye.
Take care.